Evolution is a philosophy. It's actually a religion. They have the god of chance. They have the god of time. They believe the world's billions of years old. What I object to, I guess, is the general theory of evolution, that the entire universe made itself out of nothing for no apparent reason, and that no creator is necessary.
But the thing about science is a particular way of knowing. Revelation is another way of knowing. There's a variety of ways of knowing. Science is a particular way of knowing that is restricted. In science, we're trying to understand a restricted phenomenon, which is the natural world, and we have restrictions on how we go about understanding that phenomenon.
If 10 years from now you discovered something in your scientific research, either of you, that would dispute the theory of revolution, or evolution rather, or would dispute your theory of creationism, would you be, either of you, be open to change?
Absolutely.
Oh yes, I would.
That's an excellent question. And I would actually like to ask Kent, what kind of data would refute young Earth special creation? Can you give me an example of what kind of data would cause you to rethink whether the world is created all at one time and all of the plants and animals in their present form?
Yes, you mentioned a key word there, testable. I think you made a statement a few minutes ago that evolution is a science. I would object to that vehemently. Evolution is a philosophy. It's actually a religion.
Let's talk about the science first.
Okay, well, yeah, that's what I want to distinguish between. See, evolution is not science. It's a religion that people choose to believe in. The definition of science is not a way of knowing. You'll notice in the last 20 years there's been a real tendency in the textbooks to change the definition of science to what she said earlier. Science is a way of knowing. If you look it up in a dictionary, science is the accumulated body of knowledge that we have. It's things that we know. The scientific method involves things that are observable, testable, and demonstratable. Evolution is none of those. Nobody observes it happening. We don't observe any major changes. We don't see a horse, coming from a butterfly.
I think somebody's misled you about what evolution is, if that's the case.
Do you believe fish gradually change to amphibians, amphibians change to reptiles, reptiles change to mammals?
Actually, that's not the way it happens. You ought to think about evolution. Let me give you a little metaphor to maybe help you understand it a little bit better. You have parents, and you have grandparents, and you have great-great-grandparents, and great-great-greats, and on ad nauseum. Those are your lineal ancestors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneously, you also have not just your parents, but your uncles and aunts, and your great-uncles and great-aunts, and your great-great-uncles and great-great-aunts, etc. You've got all these collateral kin as well. And you've got their offspring. You've got your cousins and your second cousins and your third cousins, your umpty-ump cousins, and so forth. We keep getting distracted here, Mr. Collins. The question I asked, which we sort of haven't been able to get to, is what kind of data would Kent accept that would demonstrate to him that all plants and animals did not occur suddenly all at one time within the last couple thousand years?
All right, let me answer her question.
In order for something to be scientific, it has to be observable, testable, demonstratable. There is no way this argument's going to be resolved scientifically. You can't offer data that proves the Earth is billions of years old because you were not there, I was not there, nobody you know was there. This idea of proving the Earth is young or old is is simply impossible scientifically. It's not testable, it's not demonstratable.
So what you're saying then is there are no data that would cause you to reject your point of view because your scientific creationism really isn't scientific.
Well, neither is evolution. You mentioned in the letter that you faxed in.
We're talking about evolution yet. We're talking about you. We'll get back to evolution in a second.
No, I agree.
What you're saying is that scientific creationism is not scientific.
I agree. There's no possible way to prove it scientifically.
Why do you guys keep trying to get it taught in the public school science classes? If it's not science, it shouldn't be taught.
Well, see, that's to prove the point. Evolution isn't science either, and it shouldn't be
now
taught.
Let's talk about whether evolution is scientific. First of all, you have an exceedingly narrow definition of what science is. If we had to refer to things scientific as only those which were directly testable, directly observable, we'd have a pretty short list of sciences that we could talk about.
Well, my point in this is that, and it's very difficult to get an evolutionist to admit this, what they have is exactly the same as what a creationist has. They have a strong belief in something that is not observable, testable, or demonstratable. Both are fundamentally religions. Well, no, wait, now you would have to agree, I'm sure, if you've studied your geology, that all of the layers of strata in the geologic column in the Grand Canyon are sedimentary rock, which means they were indeed laid down by water.
Nope, some of them were laid down by air.
Volcanic,
some of them
yeah, windblown.
Are aeolian deposits, which is pretty tough for you guys to handle when it's...
No. You mean talk about windblown ash and stuff? Sure, that happens. I think in the flood there was a catastrophe, disaster, volcanoes going off, there was ash layers, the trees...
It's pretty crazy because you got the flood going over, depositing a water layer, and then you have the flood waters going someplace, an ash layer being deposited, then the flood water coming back and depositing water layer. You know, this whole thing is just really silly. Okay.
No, we don't have these missing links. Actually, the whole chain is missing. Change the butterfly to a lion. Now that would be evolution. And
no, it wouldn't be. It'd be nonsense. No evolutionist on this planet ever said that lions are descended from butterflies.
Okay, they believe...
If you go back far enough, you can probably find a common answer to butterflies and lions.
So wait a minute. If the flood took place and the ark came down on Mount Ararat...
In that region, right?
In that region, how do you explain kangaroos exclusively migrating to Australia across a large landmass and across a large body of water after that?
If the oceans were not as deep as they are today, if you lowered the oceans just 1,000 feet, and they average 15,000 feet in depth, if you took that much water out of the oceans, all the continents become connected. The continental land bridge would be enormous between all these continents. So the interpretation that I give to that is that the ice caps that had come all the way down to Kansas City, Missouri during the time of the flood were melting back, and that's why we have a continental shelf, and that's why within the first 100 years the animals were able to get to different continents and then became isolated there and trapped where they are. There are marsupials over here, and kangaroo fossils have been found in other places. They've been found in Africa. But
they haven't.
Yes, they have.
Kangaroo fossils in Africa? That's nonsense. Place where you find fossil kangaroos and fossil Australian marsupials is in Australia. How come if those little varmints had to go all the way from the Middle East to South Asia and across into Australia that they didn't leave any fossils behind them? They must not have reproduced.
Well, no, just a minute.
Two little kangaroo kind managed to stay close to each other? Did they hold hands all the way across the ocean? I mean,
Okay.
You have to use the same species.
Sure, and I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that it's a religious belief in the sense that it's not observable or testable. They cannot show how the matter got here. The world is made of matter. Space is full of matter. Where did it come from? How did it get here? It had to be created.
I don't think that it is outside of science. I think a supernatural explanation is outside of science.
But you believe they should be taught.
Sure, that's only fair.
You believe they should be taught the other creationist theories of other religions?
Oh yeah, I think on a level playing field, if kids were allowed to view all the various options, if somebody says, hey, we think the world's not standing on the back of a giant turtle, they would see that silly. And I think the literal biblical creationist view would win out hands down. So